Meanwhile, the Indian government is investigating Apple. This was, sources are Washington Post and Al Jazeera. In response to Apple warning over 20 Indian journalists and opposition politicians that government hackers tried to compromise their iPhones back in October, the Indian government has announced an investigation into Apple. Indian officials publicly questioned whether Apple's threat detection algorithms were faulty. But according to sources speaking to the Washington Post, senior members of the Modi administration contacted Apple representatives in India privately to demand that the company help soften the political impact of the warnings, and they summoned an Apple security expert from outside the country to a meeting in New Delhi and pressured them to come up with alternative explanations for the warnings to users. Whew. Senior Apple executives reportedly found the Indian government's demands disturbing. Forensic analysis by Amnesty International has found that several journalists and politicians' phones were compromised using Pegasus, a well-known spyware that is sold only to governments. Our discussion question is, how does a company like Apple balance its promises to users with pressure from various governments, sometimes in jurisdictions where, at their whim, they could prevent Apple from manufacturing iPhones at all? And the answer is they can't. At the end of the day, they are going to bow to the government requests every single time. Well, I shouldn't say every single time, but they're going to bow wherever it is necessary. And by necessary, I mean wherever it would prevent them from making iPhones anymore. I mean, that's why Apple has data centers that hold all of their Chinese users' information in China. And that's why Apple's claims that they take user privacy extremely seriously have always come across a little bit empty to me.
And like server location is very important. There's a lot of like...
Especially in China.
Educational facilities or educational institutions, that's the word I was looking for. In Canada, for instance, you have to have data stored in Canada. And if you look at like business and education level software, like Teams, for example, you can choose to have your data stored only in your own local country in order to be data compliant with a variety of different things. This is something that a lot of places take seriously. So having all that stuff also stored in China.
Yeah, but the Chinese ones are really sketchy because Apple doesn't own the data centers even.
No, that's part of what I'm saying. It's a big red flag. This is a big and commonly looked for red flag is what I'm kind of trying to paint. Is that like education and business and all this kind of stuff, they all look for this as a red flag.
Right.